Welcome to the Hindu Daily, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack some really compelling sources from today's Hindu newspaper, distilling them into key insights for you. Today, well, we've got quite a range. We're looking at some major internal challenges facing India, think education crises, a huge tax reform, health concerns, and we'll also be navigating India's tricky position on the global stage, plus wrestling with digital speech regulation and the future of tech monopolies. It's definitely a packed agenda. So, yeah, let's dive right in. Okay, first up from the Spotlight section. This report really grabbed me. Karnataka's empty classrooms, the teacher shortage crisis. Now, you probably think of Karnataka as, a major education hub. It's got AIC, IMB institutions attracting students from all over the world. But here's the twist, the irony, really. The report reveals this massive, debilitating teacher shortage.
Right, and it's not just one level. It's across the board, primary schools, secondary, colleges, even universities run by the government.
Exactly, a huge gap in the system. And the numbers.
Yeah.
Well, they're pretty staggering, aren't they?
They really are. We're talking, 85,495 teaching posts vacant statewide?
Out of about 285,000 sanctioned posts, that's nearly one-third empty. It's huge.
And specifically in government schools, it's over 61,000 vacancies.
It doesn't stop there. Even the brand new universities lack permanent faculty. And older ones, like the University of Mysore, hundreds of vacancies. What's really striking, especially given Karnataka's tech reputation, is that zero new posts have been created for fields like AI, robotics, machine learning.
That's quite an oversight, isn't it, given the state's positioning?
Definitely. And the impact on quality is, well, it's unavoidable. The article shares stories, like a chemistry lecturer juggling two colleges. How can students get consistent learning like that?
It's incredibly difficult. And it has real consequences. The National Medical Commission, the NMC, actually rejected new medical college applications because of faculty shortages.
And penalized 16 existing ones, too.
Yeah. And the state education policy report itself, it directly connects this decline in quality to the empty posts.
You can see it plain as day in the results. SSLC, 20 PU, results in state schools, consistently below 75%.
Whereas central curriculum schools are hitting over 80%, it's a noticeable gap.
Even the NAAC rankings, the national accreditation rankings, they suffer. Scarcity of staff, quality issues, infrastructure problems.
And all this leads to declining enrollment in state universities. Students who can, they opt for private institutions.
Which, of course, hits the most vulnerable students hardest, those who depend on affordable public education.
Precisely.
Now, they have tried some things, like relying on guest faculty.
But even that's hit snags, right? There was a court case this year about the qualifying criteria, the UGC norms.
Exactly. Delayed appointments. Over 5,500 candidates lost their posts because of it.
So the stopgap wasn't even a reliable stopgap.
Ministers acknowledge the problem. They say recruitments are ongoing, CNR rules are being framed.
But some of those rules haven't been updated in, 16 or 17 years for technical education?
Shows how deep the problem runs.
What's really fascinating, or maybe concerning, is how this situation in Karnataka seems to mirror a broader trend.
How so?
Well, as former higher education minister B.K. Chandrasekhar pointed out, there seems to be this neglect, almost, of public universities across India. It's not just about filling posts.
It's systemic.
It feels like it. It's about potentially weakening the very backbone of higher education for the poorest segments of society. This isn't just numbers. It's about equity, about the future. So the big question it leaves you with is, if a state seen as an education hub is facing this, what does it mean for its future and for that promise of free and compulsory education nationwide?
It's a sobering thought. Okay, let's shift gears now, from Karnataka's internal education struggles to India's place in the shifting sands of global economics and geopolitics. Our next deep dive is from the editorial section, India's strategic recalibration amidst Trump's tariff war. This offers a really sharp take on the current international scene.
Yeah, it's definitely critical reading if you want to understand how these global disruptions are impacting India and the wider global south.
The article breaks down Trump's economic strategy, or maybe warfare is a better word, into three main drivers. First, it's domestic politics.
Right, appealing to that silent majority who feel left behind by globalization.
Which leads to these populist, sometimes xenophobic policies. The article calls it a 360-degree attack on the liberal international order. Sanctions on 30-plus nations, tariffs on nearly 70.
It's pretty aggressive stuff.
The second driver is bolstering U.S. economic strength. The article argues these tariffs are like camouflage super tax, mostly hitting American companies and consumers.
Yeah, it says they absorb about 70% of the costs.
And a big aim here is checking China's economic rise. China's GDP getting closer to the U.S.
Around 17% versus 26% for the U.S., but the gap is closing.
So the U.S. uses subsidies, unilateral policies, coercive tactics. The article points out the perceived hypocrisy, too.
Like pressuring India on farm protections while slapping huge tariffs on its own tobacco or dairy.
Yeah. Exactly. 350% on tobacco, 200% on dairy.
Wow.
And the third imperative, interestingly, seems to have bipartisan support in the U.S., not just Trump.
Which is?
Checking China's ascendance. Reversing deindustrialization, containing China, that's a shared goal, apparently.
So the tariffs, even if they seem Trumpian, fit into that larger strategy.
Yeah. The article suggests the initial tariffs against India might have been pressure related to Russia and Ukraine, but they're sticking around. Maybe as leverage against countries pushing for multipolarity.
Before eventually shifting fully to the China theater, as the article puts it.
So the big question is, how should India respond? What does New Delhi need to do?
The article has some pretty strong recommendations.
First, it says India really needs to reevaluate its partnership with the U.S. Question that assumption that Washington truly sees India as a democratic counterweight to China.
Especially with renewed U.S. ties to Pakistan or potentially skipping Quad summits.
Second, confront more aggressively. The piece basically says bullies only respond to strength.
Contrasting India stopping oil imports from Iran or Venezuela under U.S. pressure.
With China's leverage, because it controls rare earth metals. It's a stark contrast.
It is.
And third, recalibrate foreign policy. The article is quite critical of what it calls personalized diplomacy and clickbait acronyms.
Arguing they haven't really advanced India's strategic interests, and maybe even pushed China and Pakistan closer together into an ironclad alliance.
That's the argument. But it also sees an opportunity in all this disruption.
An opportunity for what?
To leverage this polycrisis, multiple crises hitting at once, to reshape the global order, champion multipolarity, push for a new economic deal for the global South.
That's ambitious.
Very. But the article stresses it requires India to urgently fix its own internal issues. First, low manufacturing, high unemployment, stagnant private investment.
Stepping back, this analysis really highlights the shifting plates of global power, doesn't it? It forces nations like India to fundamentally rethink alliances, economic strategies, the whole playbook, really.
Yeah.
It leaves you wondering, though, can India genuinely seize this moment? Can it reshape the world order? Or will those internal structural problems, the ones the article mentioned, end up limiting its influence despite the ambition? It's a crucial question for India's future.
It certainly is. Okay, while India figures out its global strategy, let's swing back home to a major internal economic shift. This next piece, also from the editorial section, is GST 2.0, India's landmark tax reform. This is about a really significant overhaul of the goods and services tax system.
Yeah, something that promises to impact the daily lives of millions.
The article pinpoints the 56th GST Council meeting, September 3rd, 2025, as this defining moment, moving beyond just tweaking rates.
Towards something simpler, fairer, more growth-focused, aligned with that Viksit Bharat 2047 vision.
And a huge part of this is simplifying the rates, getting rid of those multiple slabs, 5, 12, 18, 28%.
Which could get pretty confusing for businesses and consumers alike.
Definitely. So now they're moving to a simple tax structure, basically two main rates.
18% is the standard rate, and 5% as the merit rate, plus a higher 40% demerit rate for a few specific items.
Things like luxury goods, tobacco, that sort of thing.
Right. The idea is much less compliance burden, more predictability. That should help businesses.
And the direct impact on households looks pretty significant, too. Lots of common items moving into that lower 5% bracket.
Like soap, toothpaste, bicycles, kitchen stuff.
Yeah. And essentials like UHT milk, paneer, even chapati and paratha are now exempt altogether. Zero GST.
That's major relief for household budgets.
Plus rate cuts on packaged foods, noodles, chocolates, beverages, trying to boost consumption.
And a big one for Social Security, removing GST from all life and health insurance products.
Makes it much more affordable, especially for seniors and lower-income families. And healthcare gets a boost, too.
Exemptions and reductions on essential medicines, devices, cancer treatments.
It seems quite comprehensive in terms of consumer relief.
And it looks like key sectors benefit, too. Farmers, for instance.
Big reductions there. Tractors, farm machinery down to 5% GST, fertilizers down from 18% to 5%.
That should really bring down cultivation costs.
Labor-intensive sectors, too. Handicrafts, marble, granite, leather goods. See reduced rates. hopefully stimulating demand and protecting jobs.
And they're fixing those inverted duty structures in some critical industries?
Right, where the tax on inputs was higher than the finished product, like in textiles, with man-made fiber, now at 5%.
Makes domestic manufacturing more competitive. And cement moving from 28% down to 18%.
That's a big drop. Should definitely help infrastructure growth.
Beyond the rates, there are institutional reforms as well. The GST Appellate Tribunal, GSTAT.
Set to be operational by year-end. Promises faster dispute resolution, more consistency.
That's important for business confidence. Plus other things like provisional refunds, risk-based compliance checks.
All aimed at smoothing out the process.
You know, what's interesting is the timing. These changes kick in from September 22nd, 2025. It seems carefully phased.
To ensure revenue stability while giving immediate benefits.
Seems like it. It's not just a technical tweak. The article calls it a people's reform, which feels right, given the scope.
Yeah.
So the key question moving forward is, how effectively will this simplification translate into actual economic growth? And will it genuinely improve the ease of doing business, especially for all those small and medium businesses across India? That's the real test.
Indeed. From the macroeconomics of tax reform, let's shift to a really interesting and maybe slightly thorny debate about our digital lives. We're moving to the opinion section now for a parley, a debate format titled, "Should commercial speech on digital platforms be regulated?"
Ah, yes. This came out of that Supreme Court comment, didn't it? After some comedians allegedly made offensive remarks about people with spinal muscular atrophy.
Exactly. The court urged the government to frame guidelines, specifically targeting commercial speech by influencers because of potential offense to vulnerable groups.
Which immediately throws up big questions about free speech versus harm, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The article features a debate between two legal experts, Apar Gupta and J. Vinayak Ocha. First point, is there even a regulatory vacuum?
What do they say?
Apar Gupta argues no. He says existing laws, FIRs, under the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the IT Act, already allow for prosecution and content removal.
And he points out issues with the current IT Act censorship being opaque, lacking due process sometimes.
Right. J. Vinayak Oja actually agrees there's no vacuum. His take is, don't fix what isn't broken. He felt the specific jokes were tasteless, sure, but creating a whole new framework for one incident, overkill.
Interesting convergence there. What about using individual dignity as a reason to restrict speech?
That's a key point. Ocha notes that Article 1982 of the Constitution lists specific, exhaustive grounds for restricting speech security, public order, decency, morality.
But individual dignity isn't explicitly listed there.
Correct. He warns about a slippery slope if you introduce such a vague concept, though he acknowledges the need to protect differently abled persons.
And Gupta.
Gupta agrees any restriction needs a proper law and must be proportional. He mentions the Supreme Court did uphold criminal defamation partly based on dignity in a 2016 case.
Subramanian Swamy case, right?
Yes, but he cautions against making dignity an independent ground for restriction, fearing it could lead to expansive censorship.
A real balancing act. What about the chilling effect this could have?
Both experts are concerned. Oja predicts it would exert a chilling effect on comedians, satirists, artists, basically anyone pushing boundaries.
And Gupta emphasizes that comedy and literature often tackle uncomfortable truths.
He even cites the Supreme Court protecting unpalatable speech before, like quashing a case against an MP for a critical poem. The risk, he warns, is mass censorship if online content always has to serve some majority-defined social value.
That's a powerful warning.
Then there's the commercial aspect. Does the fact that influencers profit from speech change things?
What's the take on that?
Gupta argues commercial speech is still vital public discourse, part of the marketplace of ideas. He brings up a 1962 case, Sakal Papers, where the court protected a newspaper's commercial freedom. So the commercial nature alone doesn't justify regulation, in his view.
And Ocha.
He agrees. He notes the Supreme Court already recognizes commercial speech under Article 19.1, the free speech article, and that comedians' work isn't typically seen as commercial in that specific legal sense anyway.
Okay, so if new regulations are made, what safeguards should be in place?
Oja stresses the need for strong review mechanisms, respect for constitutional free speech principles, and crucially, meaningful stakeholder consultation.
Involving all affected groups.
Yes. But Gupta raises a concern here. He finds the court's order vague on who these stakeholders actually are and how they be consulted.
Pointing to the existing lack of transparency in India's content takedown system under Section 69A of the IT Act. The core issue here seems to be that perennial tension, protecting vulnerable groups versus safeguarding fundamental free speech. It's just amplified massively online.
Definitely.
It leaves us with a really difficult question. Is it even possible to craft regulations that effectively shield people from harm and exploitation online, especially commercial exploitation, without inadvertently killing off satire, critical commentary, and that essential marketplace of ideas? It's an incredibly fine line to walk.
A very fine line indeed. Okay, from the digital world, let's turn to a less visible but maybe equally critical public health issue. Our next deep dive is from the science section. How the antibiotic culture in India imperils mental health. This reveals a surreptitious menace, as the article calls it.
Linking antibiotics and mental health. That's fascinating. Usually the focus is all on antimicrobial resistance, AMR.
Exactly. But this piece argues the rampant use of antibiotics in India has these profound, under-discussed effects on mental well-being. And it's primarily through the gut-brain axis.
Okay, the gut-brain axis. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. It's basically this really complex communication highway between our gut, our gastrointestinal system, and our brain.
And antibiotics disrupt this.
Yes, by disrupting our gut microbiota, the trillions of bacteria and other microbes living in our gut. Excessive antibiotic use wipes out good bacteria, along with the bad.
And this disruption is linked to mental health issues.
That's the connection research is increasingly making. Things like anxiety, depression, even cognitive issues. These gut microbes influence neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, the chemicals that regulate mood, sleep, stress.
Wow. So our gut health is directly tied to our brain health.
It seems so. And the situation in India is particularly worrying.
Because of high antibiotic consumption.
Exactly. India's consumption rates are alarmingly high globally, driven by easy over-the-counter access, lots of self-medication, and just, frankly, low public awareness of the risks.
And we already know the AMR toll is devastating. The article mentions 267,000 deaths in India in 2021, projected to hit 1.2 million by 2030.
Shocking numbers. Plus, that Lancet study finding nearly half the antibiotics consumed in India are unapproved formulations. That just adds another layer of risk.
So what's the latest research showing on this gut-brain mental health link?
Well, top institutions in India like NIMHANS and AIMS are doing pioneering work exploring the connection between gut imbalance dysbiosis and psychiatric conditions.
Our gut as the second brain.
Right. It influences neurodevelopment, behavior, partly by producing things like short-chain fatty acids and through the vagus nerve connection.
And this field of psychobiotics, using probiotics for mental health, is gaining traction.
Yes, the article mentions a 2020 meta-analysis showing probiotics helped reduce depressive symptoms. And there's the inflammation link, too.
Gut dysbiosis causing inflammation, which is linked to depression.
Exactly. Inflammatory markers can cross the blood-brain barrier.
And what makes this worse in the Indian context, besides high consumption?
Several things. Lack of public awareness about this gut-brain link is huge. There's often a cultural preference for quick pharmaceutical fixes.
Rather than, say, dietary changes or prevention.
Right. Then there's lax regulation, especially in rural or semi-urban areas. Antibiotics given out without prescriptions, often for viruses where they do absolutely nothing.
Plus economic incentives. Doctors overprescribing, pharmacies acting like dispensaries.
It's a complex mix of factors.
So what's the way forward? What interventions does the article suggest?
It calls for a really holistic approach. Collaboration across different medical fields, gastroenterology, psychiatry, nutrition, public health.
Makes sense.
It also suggests tapping into traditional wisdom, promoting naturally probiotic-rich fermented foods common in Indian diets, like curd, elai, dosa, pickles.
Leveraging what's already there.
Public education is key, building gut-brain literacy through national health programs, schools, media, and stricter regulations, of course.
Enforcing prescription-only access, penalties for non-compliance, better surveillance.
And finally, retraining clinicians. Embedding antibiotic stewardship in medical education, maybe including gut health assessments and psychiatric care, prioritizing nutritional advice.
This piece really illuminates a hidden crisis, how something we often take casually, like antibiotics, can have these deep knock-on effects on mental health.
It really does.
It forces you to rethink mental illness not just as something happening in the brain, but as potentially rooted in our gut, systemically. It raises a very personal question for all of us, doesn't it? What can you do today to be a better steward of your own gut microbes, to protect your own gut-brain health?
A crucial question indeed. Okay, from that silent crisis, let's move to the power of overcoming silence itself. Our next science section piece is From Silence to Sound, Power of Hearing Implants. A really hopeful story about restoring connection.
Hearing loss is a huge issue, isn't it? Both globally and in India.
It really is. The article cites at least 63 million Indians with significant hearing loss. That's over 6% of the population, and likely an underestimate now.
And globally, 430 million people need rehab for disabling hearing loss, including millions of children.
Yes, 34 million children. And newborn hearing loss affects up to 5 in every 1,000 infants. A critical early window.
And the impact of unaddressed hearing loss goes far beyond just not hearing sounds, right?
Absolutely. It's often missed or misdiagnosed. In kids, mistaken for inattentiveness. In adults, maybe fatigue or personality changes. In older people, just accepted as aging.
When it might actually be treatable.
Exactly. And it affects everything. Education, jobs, emotional well-being, social connection. Especially for kids, delays cause major language and learning setbacks.
But the technology now, hearing implants, it's transformative.
Incredibly so. Things like cochlear implants, which bypass damaged parts of the inner ear to directly simulate the auditory nerve. Great for severe to profound loss.
And active middle ear implants for other types of hearing loss.
Right. Conductive, mixed, some sensor and neural loss. The point is, these devices don't just restore hearing, they restore participation in life.
Children finding their voice, older people reconnecting with family.
It's profound, and the techniques are pretty standardized now. Low complication rates, good outcomes with proper follow-up.
So early detection is key.
Absolutely crucial. Building that culture of preventive care, universal newborn screening, school checks, routine adult tests, raising awareness to fight the stigma.
Because hearing is connection.
That's exactly what the article emphasizes. Hearing is not only about sound, it is about connection.
It's amazing how technology can restore something so fundamentally human.
It is.
But it brings up a vital question, especially given the scale of the problem. Millions affected in India alone. How can society ensure everyone who needs these life-changing technologies can actually access them? Prioritizing early intervention, making it equitable across such a diverse country, that's the challenge, isn't it?
A major challenge. Hey, let's shift gears again. From cutting-edge tech back to deep history and complex geopolitics. Our next deep dive is from Text and Context. India-China. The making of a border. This is part one of a series, and it's essential reading to understand this incredibly complicated, largely undefined frontier.
Yeah, the roots of the current tensions go way back.
They really do. The article explains the border was basically a product of two empires, Manchu China and British India, meeting in the high Himalayas.
And because it was so remote, so sparsely populated, it was never precisely drawn on the ground.
Right. So after independence, India kind of felt its British maps were good enough and didn't want to renegotiate. But China always maintained the border was undefined.
Setting the stage for conflict from the start.
Pretty much. Early flashpoints emerged quickly. Aksai Chin, for instance.
It's a high-altitude desert area. China built a highway through it connecting Xinjiang and Tibet, basically occupied it.
While India established control in Tawang, in what's now Arunachal Pradesh, based on the 1914 McMahon Line, agreed with Tibet.
And China made proposals early on.
Yeah, in 1959, they proposed accepting the line of actual control, the LAC, and pulling back forces. Then in 1960, Premier Zhou Enlai offered a swap. China keeps Aksai Chin. India keeps the McMahon Line area.
But India refused both, saw it as giving up rightful territory.
Which led partly to India's later attempt to regain Aksai Chin, increased friction, and ultimately the 1962 war.
A really traumatic event in the relationship.
Definitely. After the war, China pulled back north of the McMahon Line in the east, but crucially, they held on to areas they'd captured in the west, in Ladakh.
Further complicating any future settlement.
And subsequent Chinese proposals were also rejected by India, right? Like the Deng Xiaoping proposal in 1980, similar to the 1961.
Yes, and the 1983 LAC Plus idea, which wanted India to concede even more territory captured in 62 in Ladakh. India saw these as trying to legitimize gains through force.
So talks resumed in the 80s, but didn't get far initially.
Right, different approaches. China wanted a package deal for the whole border. India wanted sector-by-sector talks.
Then China shifted its stance again in 1985, demanding India concede Tawang as part of any eastern settlement.
Tawang being a major center for Tibetan Buddhism, adding another layer of complexity.
Plus, there were clashes in Sikkim in 67, and China protested Sikkim joining India in 75, and that big crisis in Guangdong in 1986.
leading to India's Operation Falcon, showing a much stronger Indian military posture compared to 62.
Exactly, a real demonstration of changed capabilities.
But then came a significant shift towards normalization.
Yes, Rajiv Gandhi's visit to Beijing in 1988. China invited him, maybe partly to counter India getting closer to the U.S. then.
And Deng Xiaoping urged both sides to forget the unpleasant period.
The key breakthrough, according to the article, was India agreeing to develop the rest of the bilateral relationship before settling the border, prioritizing peace and tranquility on the border itself.
Leading to the Joint Working Group, the JWG.
Right, shifting the focus from immediate resolution to managing the situation.
You know, looking at this history, it's striking how these diplomatic moves, historical baggage, and strategic calculations have constantly shaped this frontier.
It's incredibly complex.
And that shift from demanding immediate resolution to managing peace and tranquility, it was a pragmatic recognition of just how deep the disagreements run. It makes you really consider how much does this complex, often bitter history still dictate the terms of engagement between India and China today? And what does it mean for any possibility of a final border settlement down the road?
Those historical echoes are definitely loud. Okay, let's wrap up our deep dive with a look at the future of technology, search, and market power. Our final piece, also from Text and Context, asks, will Google lose its data moat after landmark U.S. court ruling? This looks at that recent U.S. court decision against Google.
Ah, yes, the monopoly ruling. Big news in the tech world.
For sure. Google's dominated search for 2 decades, right? Googling is a verb built on refining its engine with tons of user data.
And those exclusive deals making it the default search engine everywhere.
But the U.S. Department of Justice sued them in 2020, and Judge Amidst ruled Google is a monopolist and acted illegally to maintain that monopoly.
Spending billions on those distribution deals.
So the court ordered remedies specifically. Google has to share its vast trove of search data with qualified competitors. Trying to break down that data advantage, its moat.
That moat being built on 2 things. The huge web index and all that user interaction, data queries, clicks, time on page, a massive feedback loop.
Exactly. The court wants to give rivals access to that historical data.
But the article argues this might be too little, too late, a solution for yesterday's problem.
That's the core argument, because the future of search isn't just 10 blue links anymore. It's shifting towards direct answers from large language models, LLMs.
Like Google's own AI overviews, more of a dialogue with AI, a GPT-powered answer engine.
Right. And in this new AI-first world, the competitive advantage changes.
So that historical query data the court is making Google share, it's less critical for this new AI paradigm.
That's the claim. What's really valuable now is data on how users interact with the AI-generated answers.
Ah, the reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF.
Exactly. And Google, with its existing deals, Search, Chrome, Android, it has this massive global platform for collecting that RLHF data at an unparalleled scale. Every time someone uses AI overviews, refines a prompt, clicks a source,
Google learns and improves its AI, creating a new moat.
Precisely. So the article concludes the ruling might help rivals build better classic search engines.
But does little to challenge Google's lead in the race towards AI answer engines.
The moat isn't gone. It's just being re-engineered around a new, more advanced, and even more defensible technology.
It really highlights that cat and mouse game between regulators trying to curb monopolies and the sheer speed of technological change, doesn't it?
It really is.
If legal remedies are always playing catch-up, what does that mean for actual competition? For ensuring information access isn't overly centralized in this coming age of AI, it's a fundamental question about power in the digital future.
A very important question to end on. Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we're eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day